Let's figure it out. All right.
Perfect.
So how do you want to start it?
Eric, go ahead, man. So we are here today.
Yeah, dude. So we got. How do you want to be introduced, man?
It's Josh.
Yeah, you know,
Introduced as Josh and Brynn.
Josh Sigman and Brynn
No
Rouse.
last name needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The legends. It's Josh and Brynn.
it's hard, right? Because like the reputation precedes you, but at the same time, we don't want to
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I think so. Josh Sigman with Legacy Mutual Mortgage, loan officer, vice president, marketing director, and then I think tying in, Sigman Sense, yeah.
Without a doubt, we definitely need to do that.
And-
I think you just started the intro right there.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. So Sigman Sense, tell us a little bit about Sigman Sense. What's that all about?
So Sigman Sense was a brainchild of Josh and mine's that we started in 2020. And Josh is a great lender, a fantastic lender and business person, but also has a really, really, really strong knack for money and teaching people about money and how to save money. And being a student of his for 5 or 6 years now, with him coaching me and my husband both personally on our finances, we've learned so much, we've come so far, and we just felt like this is a huge opportunity to give back, to talk to people, put together some content that is real life and easy to follow and broken down really well. Season 1 is of Sigman Sense is all about money, and there's 34 episodes. So we whipped up we broke it down in 34 different ways. And wow. It goes into everything from, what kind of emotions come up when you start talking about money with your spouse or other loved ones or anybody that you're sharing finances with, how to navigate those conversations, why they come up, how to teach your kids about money, how to increase your net worth. What is your net worth? What all goes into that?
Budgeting, the dread budgeting word.
Yeah. What goes into budgeting? Everything. I mean, literally everything. So it's awesome.
Yeah. For me, it was always about, the joke is we help people get into debt.
Right.
So I need to try and help people get out of debt. And it's weird, looking at thousands and thousands of bank statements and tax returns, how uncanny it is that the person that you figure walking in the door like this guy is the rich dude, how ugly it is behind the cameras.
Sure.
And then the one that walks in that's kind of unassuming is like, I got to take notes. Like, this guy's onto something, right?
Sure.
Or girl. And so I was just kind of sharing lots of lessons over the last 18 years of lending. And then it kind of turned into a season 2, right? So season 2 now is focused more on anything business, acumen, sales, time management related, because we have to teach people how to make money before you can start to save money.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a joy. It's like the side project that just keeps on carrying on. We are now international, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
I was telling Brynn that.
Does that mean outside of Texas?
That means Australia.
There you go.
Yeah,
YouTube has taken you to those heights, or how does?
I'm not even sure. I
I
literally got a direct IM from Australia that says, "Hey, please keep on laying down content. I love watching you and listening to you." I was like, "Brynn, what do I do with this? I'm nervous."
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, how long have you been sitting on that? Send it to me.
It's crazy how fast it goes.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. We have a couple clients that find us, and it's interesting now. Every once in a while, I have a client that gets pre-qualified, and they start talking to me, and they're like, "Hey, before we do anything else, can you just coach me on my budget?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. I love that you're asking the question. Let's talk about your money."
Actually, right before we got here, I got so at the end of our closings, we survey our clients, and one of the questions is, how did you find us? How were you referred to the Sigman team? And it literally said, I listened to Sigman Sense.
Yeah.
And
pretty cool.
Yeah. So
what a relief.
It's so, I know.
Like,
and I'm
that's
like,
a cute Austin couple. It's a cute Austin couple.
Like, thank goodness we can do another season.
Right.
But yeah, we're happy to be here though, because you guys are doing tons in your own right. You know. And
man, we've definitely, we survived COVID with flying colors. Obviously
and doubled the size of your office and doubled your personnel and or tripled.
We did. We have been super grateful. I mean, and it's we just relationships and taking care of people. Really, we invested in a little bit of technology, and once all that happened, we had to figure out, how are we going to get in front of these people? The world is shutting down. And so obviously technology helped tremendously. And,
I mean,
I like this, just one of those things where, we just take care of people. Well, yeah, we do. I mean, we got their insurance. I mean, that's what we're here
Yep.
for.
Yes.
Did you invest in Zoom?
So not so much, because still like
PayPal, Zoom, anything that Peloton, anything that allowed you
I
to
mean,
Seriously,
yes,
right?
Oh,
yes.
okay, like real not
Yeah.
pay
Like
for the
literally.
Not
subscription,
pay
like
for this, yeah.
These are free tips. I'm not a financial planner.
I get it. And you guys have been giving out free tips for a while. It's like I know that you were doing seminars in the building next to Legacy,
Yeah.
and it was like you were teaching people about the 5 different places in their life that they can improve and simplify things. And so you have been kind of beating on this drum for a while, and it's only recently that podcasting has kicked off and video and all that stuff. So before all that started, y'all were already into this space, kind of like helping people.
We're in the self-help space.
Yeah, I think it's kind
Who gets in self-help space? The people that are most screwed up. So they're working on themselves a lot. They're like, shit, this worked for me. Maybe this work for somebody else.
and it does, right?
Yeah.
It seems to. So that's what I picked up. And one thing I love about you guys is that y'all are a lot. Logic plays a huge key into what you present to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of watching some of your old stuff, and I just kind of, what do you think logic versus no logic looks like?
Logic versus emotion.
Exactly.
You should just watch season 1 and 2 of Sigman Sense, and you'll see exactly what logic versus emotion looks
Yeah,
like.
that's why we look good on camera together. The best answer I've got is they're both needed, right? So one's not better than the other. What usually is an issue is that people get stuck in one side, and so they're so focused on their one side, like logic. So for me, I got in a conversation. I'm not going to say who won or lost because that doesn't matter. But I got a conversation about vaccinations. So, you've got the side of vaccinations that COVID is real. You got the side that is all fake news. You've got you need to do this to protect yourself. You've got this, don't experiment on my body, right? And there's a lot of truth to both sides, right? Like they always say something in the middle is usually the right answer. But where logic comes into it for me is like, let's just look at the data.
right.
Like people that get vaccinated do or don't survive longer. Do people, people that are exposed like did our death rate go up in 2020?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to convince anyone of things, but I was in a conversation with one of my best friends, and it does, like that example is so polarizing that it's usually an emotional issue that allows people to stay in a polarized state because I'm right, you're wrong, I'm angry, I'm not going to listen. And that's the death of democracy. Well, what are the top 3 things you're not allowed to talk about in business?
Religion.
And?
Sex.
Politics.
There's 4. You're right. It's religion, sex, politics, and what else? Money.
Yeah.
Right? So why? Because they all have emotional charge.
Yeah.
They all have an emotional charge.
They'll drive a wedge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
Which is one of my favorite things about the first season was, I come from the total viewpoint of we don't talk about money, and it's not something that's talked about. And so getting through that and working through like the emotions that do come up when you talk about it and like how to navigate those. And I mean, it's really helpful. And it's it's also why there's, so much debt in the world. It's because it's so emotional to address it. And whether that's with yourself or with a spouse or a loved one, like it's so emotional to address that you just don't do it. Yep. And so it just perpetuates the problem because it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. It's very uncomfortable.
And the flip side, as a
my
logic
wife does
person,
not suffer with that, by the way.
and the flip side, as a logical person, a logical person can tend to like dismiss an emotion, like you're just being emotional.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? It doesn't make it less real.
Right.
So that's a real thing to process through.
Yeah.
And people need to process through it differently. And so to take the time and being a better listener and trying to, what do they say?
Was that feeling their emotions? I forget what that word
empathy?
is. I don't have that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's a lot of logical people don't. They have to work on it. But
you gotta
it's exactly right. There's a
concentrate.
difference between caring and feeling.
Sure.
Like I care that you're hurt, but not a lot of people don't feel your pain. right? That's the difference of empathy versus just caring.
I've heard your
And
stories,
sympathy.
this scenario,
Yeah.
like the 911. Like, is this a
911
911
or a
411?
411?
411 or
What are we
411?
doing
Yeah.
here? What are
Yeah.
we doing here?
You just telling me this just to be informative, or
Yeah.
do I need to go fix
Are we
something?
going to fix something?
Well, that's
Boy,
why
I still fail at that a lot, though. God,
That's
I
why
want to fix. I want to
believe
fix.
in you guys so much, is because I feel like y'all aren't bullshitting. You're not making this up. You have been in this place, and you had to mentally learn and grow to get yourself maybe out of debt or paying attention at home. We've talked about this in one of your meetings. You've been on the other side of the coin, and you said, I want to simplify my life. I want to do the things that make me happy. Because I heard you guys say, I have all the goals that I want. This was an example about somebody else. You have all the goals that you want, but you still hate your life. Like, well, how did I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did I miss the mark there?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's funny. I was talking about goals with a friend of mine actually last week, and what I've always found is there's never been a goal ever that I've hit that was as sweet as I thought it would be, like ever. And that's the problem with driven people. As you drive to get somewhere, and then you're like, get there and look around. It's like the promised land. They go like 1948 Israel. So the chosen people were given back their land, right?
Sure.
It was a desert. It was not as green and lush and vibrant as they were hoping for. They had to irrigate the thing, right? They were
Right.
still attacked by every neighbor. Every neighbor hated them. And that's the promised land, like literally. And it's just interesting to me that goes back to why you got to appreciate and enjoy the ride and work on what you're doing. And I think the topic, the simplifying everything, is so interesting, because I think that we all have these delusions of grandeur of I want more and do more and have more and run more and have more responsibilities and
Sure.
and there's a small percentage of people in the world that really get off on that, and that's not me.
Right.
Like, I've learned that over the years, is that's not me.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of us get caught up in just picking goals for the sake of picking goals, rather than really identifying what it is that we want and what the goal should be to accomplish those things. So it's really easy to say, okay, it's the new year and my goal is going to be to increase my income by X amount. It's going to be to run a marathon, because that's a really popular thing that people choose. And so we fall into these traps of, we just pick goals for the sake of picking them. And a lot of them are very cliche. And that also leads into complication, because now you're wrestling with this, I'm super driven and I said I was going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm going to work at it, and I'm going to make it, and I'm going to get it done. But I'm going to have this conflict the entire time, because I don't really know that this is really what
What I
the
want.
goal should have
That
been.
just leads to failure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In
Yeah,
the grand
or
scheme of
not,
things.
Or
it
just
leads-
be miserable.
Or,
Yeah.
like Josh said, when you get to the end and it's just not quite as sweet, that's a huge bummer too, So I think, one thing we've talked about for the last 2 years is really digging deep on how to actually select really meaningful goals. Man, they take you a lot further, but they also take a lot more time to identify, because it's
Right.
not a, hey, let's sit down for 30 minutes and write down these, the things that
Right.
come to mind quickest. You really got to kind of dig around a little bit and what do I actually want? And then work for those things.
Yep.
So
One thing
it's
she had brought up on our podcast was so many goals that are set are because when the boss asks, they think that's what the boss wants to hear. Or like the marathon example, most people don't want to do a marathon, but when their friend asks them, will you run a marathon with me? They say, yeah, that sounds great.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden they're trapped in this, holy shit, I can't let my friend down, but I really hate my life right now.
Yeah, I really want to do this.
It's actually funny. Jordan, one of my best friends, signed up for a triathlon. He's done several in the past, but he's learned that he doesn't like the Olympic distance. The Olympic distance is not fun. And 2 weeks before the race, he and I got together, and he told me that he'd gone up to his friend and said, hey, I just want to let you know, like, if you don't want to do this, please, like, let's just not do it, because I said I would do it for you, but I don't really love this. And if you were to say, like, you know what, I'm doing it for you, Jordan, then we would both feel like shit finishing that damn thing, look at each other like, wait, I thought I was there for you. Yeah, but he was conflicted on, is this something you really want to do? Because you better really want to do it, because I'm putting myself through a lot of heartache in the way.
Right.
And anyways.
I think the other thing too that happens though is we don't put enough consideration into what we commit to, and we'll easily say, yeah, I'll do that. Yes, let's do that. And very quickly turn around and quit. And that's not good for the psyche.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Because it's easier to quit next time.
well, yeah. And it's like,
it's
oh,
easier
I
quitting.
said I would do that. And I didn't do it. Oh, I said I would do that and I didn't do it. When in reality, it's not that you suck or that you can't follow through on anything.
Yeah.
It's that you didn't put enough conscious effort into the commitment in the first place.
Like just an empty promise.
It's just, it's just, I'll do that, and not really understanding that, oh, that's
So, question, I think we have talked about this in the past, man. You get to a point to where like you feel like you've accomplished so much, and you talk about the goals are just same old goal after goal after goal. I got to do 50 deals a month, yada yada yada. 35 deals, breaks even, yada yada yada. All this, stuff like that. When have y'all came to the point to where when is enough? Like what have I accomplished? When
That's a great
everything
question.
that I've accomplished, when is enough? Like, I got a fantastic family. My wife still loves me. I got a ranch or whatever. I got a house on Port Ray. Like, when is enough? And when do you just slow down? Like,
I think
is there a slowdown?
I think there's a different answer to everybody, right? That's a personal decision. So whoever's listening, like, be clear, like, figure it out for yourself when enough is enough. But two things that help me with that answer personally is I learned a concept that every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And typically who you're saying no to is more important than the person you're saying yes to, right? So, like, when I think about drive and working the 70 hours a week instead of a clean 40, right? Because I can get 2 more deals or whatever that means to you, right? Then what the expense was time with my kids,
right?
Time with my wife, health, because I'm going to pick up fast food on the way home because freaking the wife for sure threw away the food by the time I got home, right? Because she was pissed I was late, right? So, and rightfully so, by the way. But so that's one thing, is like what is really most important is one of them. The other piece, though, too, is I believe in God, and so I do think that certain people have God-given talents, and I think that wasting God-given talents is not okay either. In my book that I follow with my religion, what it says is, the first things first is you got to take care of your own family, and then take care of those around you. But to me, what that reads is don't require others to take care of you. Right. So if you were to go to the basic level, like freaking produce something enough so that you can take care of yours and your family, and the rest of us don't have to take care of you and your family. As a very charitable person, I am happy to write checks. Sure. But if you have the ability to pick up a damn shovel and you choose not to because it's easier to get a damn check from the government, that's not enough.
Right.
Sure. Right? If you're asking, like, when's enough? Right. Not enough. Like, very clearly. So somewhere between, like, don't make the rest of the world work for you because you're lazy, and make sure that you're really focused on what the priorities are. Somewhere in between there is the right answer for everybody.
And I think that there's a point in a lot of people's lives where maybe they're growing up and they're learning, maybe they took the hard way, right? Maybe they didn't go to college, or, they chose to screw around during their college years, but I think that,
we call those victory laps.
Exactly. But I think there was a point where I realized that nobody's coming back to save me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The only person that's going to save you is you, and so it's just a very interesting thing. Kind of once I figured that out, I was like, okay, well, it's just you versus you now, and it's been like that. I mean, it's like that for all of us at a certain point in our lives where we got to look in the mirror and really buckle down and say, do I want this, right? And then you commit.
And what am I willing to do for it too?
Exactly. There comes to a point where, like, I shared this with my team numerous times. The world is not against you. Yeah. The world doesn't give a shit about you. Like, you have to go do your thing.
Go do your thing.
I mean, and we had a conversation today, around the lunch table today, in regards to just doing what you like to do. we were talking about our kids. Like my kids, I got 3 accounts set up for each kid: life, universal life, and obviously the college fund.
Yep.
And they were like, well, what if she doesn't want to go to college? Cool. I saved 18 years of money.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's going to be taxed. Okay.
Okay.
I was going to spend it on something stupid if I did it anyway.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Super
And
interesting, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the world doesn't care what you want to do. It doesn't really care about you. You just got to go do what you want to do.
Yep.
And be happy with it. Success is different in everybody's life, right?
Totally.
For me, for you, whatever. And it's not my job to tell you what success means to you. You just got to figure it out. I kind of feel like these days people work less, that are younger than me, in their 20s, 30s, low 30s, probably because all they did was watch their parents work. Kind of like you were talking about a while ago, something has to give. You tell somebody yes, you tell somebody no.
Yeah.
Well, I do think though is that there's a time and place. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
I do think like the earlier you get started, I think of it like working out, right? So you don't know what you can pick up until you pick up a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to work out that muscle and figure out what busy really is before you can tell somebody like, you're too busy. You should take it easy. Like, screw you. Like, have you ever worked this hard in your life? Probably not. And I really like it. And I can get a lot more done in 40 hours a week than most people can get done in literally like a month.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you and I have both seen this.
Correct.
Like I got the same or fewer hours than every loan officer in San Antonio. And there's about 3 of them that keep up with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the point of saying that is that I think that especially before you have too many responsibilities, so I'm appealing to the younger people out here, or you're the ones that the kids did go back to, they left or they're out, they flew the coop, like go freaking work your ass off and figure out what busy really is and then start to peel back. Like find max power.
Sure.
Right.
And then throttle back till you find something that you really enjoy as the right level for you.
It's a very unique perspective that you have, because I know just by researching some of your story that I guess you had a business partner at Legacy that his wife maybe passed away or something happened, and then he approached you with an opportunity to take over Texas, and you took a little bit of time to say, hey, I need to evaluate. Is this right? Because what am I going to what is this taking away from? If I'm giving more over here, it's taking away from family or health or whatever. So it's just very interesting.
That's spot on. Yeah, that was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, and it's exactly right. It was one of those what I thought I always wanted, right? Like to have the plaque, the big name, like I'm the boss.
Sure.
Right? Which is what my partner is. And by the way, I'm happy he stayed in it, and he's still my boss.
Oh, good.
But he was he was grieving, right? So when he's grieving and he had enough money to be done if he wanted to, he probably just don't want to deal with the company anymore, right?
Sure.
Just could simplify her a little bit. But I had to, at that moment, evaluate, like, is that really what I wanted to? Going back to what Brynn brought up earlier. Is it really what I want? And the truth of the matter is that for sure at that moment in my life, I did not want more responsibilities. I had, at that time, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Yeah, things were about to get a whole lot
I
more
was just starting to coach.
Yeah.
I was just starting to I was just starting to get to a 40-hour work week probably about that time frame.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, 40 hours is pretty awesome.
Pretty
like,
awesome,
80 is doable.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had to simplify it. You were going to have to simplify even more
Yep.
to take on all this responsibility, but still get so many things done.
Yep.
So it's just amazing.
So what I always lean on, and obviously this came from Josh too, is the wheel of life, right? Like this to me, when he introduced it to me, was such a beautiful representation of the key areas to focus on,
which are
family, love life, spirituality, money,
health,
work,
Friends. 7.
and so the idea is that your life is a wheel represented by these 7 areas, and the first goal is to identify right where you're at, and then hopefully get it to a round sort of wheel, because if there's any flatness, right, then your wheel does not roll very well. So the first step is to round it out, and then the second step is to get it bigger. And so for me, I'm always constantly thinking about where I am at with my wheel in any point in my life. But within that, it's easy to say, what do I want my family life to look like?
Right.
What do I want my relationship with my spouse to look like? What do I want to do with my friends? And what do I want my work life to look like? And what's so interesting is a great place, if you're like wrestling with, I really don't know what I want, ask your parents if you have the ability to ask your parents what you would say when you were little, what you wanted to do when you grow up, and how many kids you wanted to have. It's such an interesting perspective. So my mom told me, she said, when you would talk about work, you would say, I don't care what I do, but I want to wear high heels, a really nice outfit. I want to carry a briefcase, and I want to walk into a really big building.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, folks,
You have arrived.
I've arrived. So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So, asking your parents to tell you kind of like, what did I used to say? That's a great place to start. But when you really kind of think through, like, now what do I want? What's super important for me and my family is, I want to be at every game. I would cry so hard if I could not be at their games and their competitions. And so what does that look like?
Right.
And what needs to happen in the other areas? And when you can kind of spend time going through that, then going back to simplifying, it does make it really simple to say, am I doing what I want? And how am I measuring up to what I really have said that I want? But I also think that we're really, we're hard on ourselves when we find that something has changed. Like you just talked about, like when your kids age up and, and out into different stuff, life looks different. And so we're not always quick to say, okay, so maybe what I said I needed or what I needed 2 years ago is not in line with what I need anymore. And we wrestle with that, and it doesn't make us feel good. We feel like we're failing or whatever, and we're not. We just have to stop and readjust the wheel and figure out what needs to happen in each one. So keeping it super simple.
Real quick. So, you and Randy, beautiful family. You got a girl and 2 boys, right? Your boys are how old?
Weston is 11 and Walker's 7.
And KK's in high school.
17.
Yeah.
17.
17.
That was an evil laugh.
17.
So you and Randy, how have y'all, you got baseball, you got competitions, you got all this other, how have y'all been able to simplify y'all's life on, from a family perspective? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing as the team mom?
As the team mom.
the Rouse team mom.
So
and your Sundays, you gotta talk about your Sundays.
And my Sundays, yeah. So I'm kind of a freak. So okay, I will start by saying, the thing that simplified my world the most, and I think Randy would agree, was for us to get really right with each other. And I think anybody who's married can hear what I'm saying. Like, it's not always easy, and things change within a relationship, and our roles change, and we live this life, and it's sometimes hard to keep up. And sometimes you find yourself like, how the hell did we end up on 2 different planets? Like, because at one point we really liked each other and, and decided to like lock arms for life. Sure. And when you're
sounds like a really bad idea.
I made the decision. My life is so much simpler when Randy and I are right. So I think it starts there, like really figuring out what that looks like. And it's not easy all the time. And you really gotta give, and you gotta take, and you gotta be able to like really work through that. That simplifies. From there,
Just a quick question about that, just to break it down even further. So what does that look like? Does that look like honey, meet me at the dinner table after the kids go to sleep? Let's start getting this on paper. And this is for personal, by the way.
Yeah.
This is where we're, maybe lacking. And then, because, each one of us has our own complaints about the other, right?
Sure,
so how do you get on the same page? I know that sometimes a conversation in passing just doesn't do the trick.
Yeah. So what I have found is, like, most times we articulate what the other one's doing that drives us crazy in the heat of the moment. So when we're fighting or arguing about something, that's when we choose to communicate the things that we want to see done differently. And you can't hear anything during that space. So really like taking the time to bite your tongue and then revisiting that conversation and saying like, hey, you know, when I was mad about this, like the socks on the ground, it's not really about the socks on the ground. It's really about, I think it makes me feel disrespected, you know, and then hearing what he has to say about that. But to get there, you really have to like, I mean, it's work. Mm-hmm. It's really important work though. Like what I have found, because we have just had so many swings in our relationship, like this is the best we've ever been, but it's also the hardest we've ever worked. And so, you know, so I think it starts with really coming to terms with the fact that, and I just, you know, I told him, there's no plan B for me. So like however you want to live the rest of this life, like I'm not going anywhere. So I would hopefully we don't want to be miserable forever. Like let's fix our shit, you know?
Yep. Well said.
Like, you know, like this could be really fun or really awful.
Sure.
So I think, you know, coming to those terms is really important. So I think that's the first step.
Yeah, making sure one person doesn't have a foot out the door.
100. Yeah, great point. But, you know, some things that, you know, Randy and I have done in the past is kind of loosely talk through what we want in our lives, but never really carve out a space to talk through it. And this last year, or going into 2020, was the first time we ever, like, literally did a staycation. And one day was to sit down and do the Wheel of Life and together. We'd always done it. I would do mine and then he would do his, and we would look at them. We'd read them together. It was always interesting what we would see, but we've never done it together. And that was super cool because now we have a roadmap, and it's so interesting to hear what he had to say, like things that have never come up before. Like, I didn't know you wanted to do that.
And it came off the Wheel of Life?
Through the Wheel of Life.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
She just
So there's your tactic
I'm
number
sure
one.
Randy, I'm
Yeah.
sure Randy
Do your
told
Wheel
her.
of Life together with your spouse.
Wheel of Life
Yeah.
together. I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love
Do
it.
it together. And then that kind of formulates, you know, what needs to happen moving forward. So I would say, like, on day-to-day basis, we absolutely have a daily huddle because we are going in a bunch of different directions. And so
Who's got who?
Yep. Who's got who's going where. And then, you know, identifying responsibilities. Like, I do the HEB order, he does the Sam's order for every week. Like, here's what, you know, that looks like. There's a lot of prepping. Like, my Sundays are huge. Everything's written out on whiteboards. I've got the baseball schedule written. I've got, you know, Weston's daily carb count. Like, we have his goals for what, you know, how many carbs we want him to have being a type 1 diabetic. Just everything is mapped out. So that's super helpful. It's visual for everybody to see.
And people think that, like, that calendaring, that level of organization is, like, exhausting. But the rest of the week, she doesn't think about it because it's perfect. Because it was already done. It's planned out. It was ordered. It was like, we're not guessing what we're going to eat.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yes. Everything. Yeah. What the meal options are. Yeah. I mean,
Snack options when the kids get home.
Well, they absolutely, like, here's what we have for snacks. Here's the ideas for dinner. Pick one.
You don't have like 5 different dishes to cook every single night. You got one dish.
One thing.
Yeah.
One thing.
Absolutely.
Do people think that, you know, as the older we get, the less structure we need? But literally what I'm hearing this whole entire time is that kids need structure, adults need structure. And it's just not so much about, you know, it's just about getting it out of your brain and just being free. It's a moment of free that you can just move on. No, but people just want a moment of, or people need structure. Everybody, adults, children.
It frees the mind.
It frees the mind. And so it's a very relaxing feeling. It's great to be able to sleep 6 to 8 hours a night because you're not constantly waking up at 2:00 in the morning wondering, did I put this on my calendar?
Right.
Or, oh my gosh, I got a meeting. What did I forget to do? You know, it's
the how to is the key. And so, like, there's plenty of books about this. Probably my favorite ones are like the Chop Wood, Carry Waters and the Pound the Stone books.
Such a great. I got Carlos in the office.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, he read that one the other day. You know, he's got.
That's awesome.
It is. It's great, man.
And that's
what
the
is
whole.
the Pound the Stone? What's the moral of
The
that?
moral of it. So, literally, if you are a old school like mason that's cutting imagine a big piece of granite, and they're trying to cut a big old slab not using a saw. what these old school masons will do is they'll go find like a little imperfection in the stone, and they'll put their little chisel in there and they'll start pounding away on it. And, you know, unlike chopping a tree where you actually see the cuts, and so you can, like, when you're getting exhausted and sweating, you're like, well, shit, I'm halfway there. I might as well keep going.
Yep.
On the stone, you don't know if it's going to be the third strike or the 3,000th strike, but all this, because it doesn't change, and all of a sudden it just literally sloughs off, just sloughs off. And so the reason why I bring that up is I really do believe that, like, my favorite song that I go back to, so Dave Matthews is one of my favorite artists, and the favorite song ever is a song called Ants Marching. And the first two lines of the song, I'm not a singer, so excuse me, cover your ears if you don't listen, but it is, he wakes up in the morning, does his teeth bite to eat, and he's rolling, never changes a thing, right? Like, that is the best example of how I simplified my life.
Yeah.
Like, my days are on, like, Groundhog Day.
Right.
Yeah.
I get up same time, I read, I work out, I drop kids off at school. On the days I drop kids off at school, I have coffee for 30 minutes with my wife, because she wants to have, by the way, it's a good tip, like 30 minutes of just take care of each other before you take care of the rest of the world, right? Sure. You know, my appointments start at the same time, they end at the same time. I have coaching after that. My weekend routine is pretty dialed in. If it's not a sporting event, then it's for sure the ranch, because I want to do stuff that makes me sweat and not think. And Monday morning comes around and I do the same shit all over again. And then within the days, you know, if you're a salesperson at all, you prospect first, right? You have those calls, you meet with your team. If you don't take care of your team's not going to take care of the rest of your clients, right? And then you have client appointments, and you stay closest to the money, right? Like, people will do all sorts of weird new marketing things, or weird new organizational things, or weird new checklist things, or training things. And there's somebody that needs help right now buying a house or getting insurance or whatever, and this, like, they'll call them back tomorrow, which is super weird to me.
Right.
Like, just call them first. So that prioritization is a key. And
I think one thing Josh does really well, if not perfect, is he does not allow the I don't want us to come into the picture. Like, he looks at his calendar and just does what's on there. And I think a lot of us will look at our calendar and be like, I really don't want to do that.
It's negotiable.
So I'll move it to tomorrow or whatever. And that's just not something that you do.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that keeps it pretty damn simple.
Well, I was
very
talking.
interesting. Yeah.
I was talking with Adam Hughes one time, and, you know, obviously he's on your team, and, you know, he was doing like a hard 75 or whatnot, where you work out twice a day, and then you gotta read.
That's a ridiculous. It's awesome.
And I asked him, I said, dude, how do you getting home at 7:30 o'clock at night? Like, how are you working out again? And he was just like, you know what you do? You don't think about it.
You don't think about
it. You
it.
just roll, man.
Yeah.
And, you know,
true.
You move on. If
True.
You don't give yourself the opportunity to talk yourself out of completing the task.
Right.
You don't think about it.
And that's what I was in a time management class, and I'm going to tell you two pieces of the puzzle, because I think one of them starts with being true to your word, right? So this day and age, I find that, like, really, truly honest people are far-fetched, far fleeting. They're, like, few and far between, right? So I've got a boss. I've actually got a couple bosses, but I got this one specific boss, and there's 44 of us that work for him, and we were supposed to entertain his 500 clients 2 weeks ago. And one of his rules is don't have more than 2 drinks at night. And, you know, this is the first time I've seen these people since COVID started. And it was kind of like spring break 1999 all over again. Like, it was for sure not 2 drinks, and no one lost their mind. But
Right.
It was interesting. The boss in the morning meeting said, "Hey, I heard that you guys had a good time last night. Did anyone have more than 2 drinks?" And my friend Nikki actually was the one person in the room, and she was sitting front and center in front of a very scary boss. And she said, "I did," right? And the reason why I like that is the concept of being impeccable with your word is something that we lie to ourselves about what we're willing to do to hit a goal. We lie to ourselves about what we're willing to do to hit a weight. We lie to ourselves about, like, we really want to learn Spanish, you know, at age 30 or whatever. We lie to ourselves, and we prove that by quitting time and time again, not following the calendar. And what was really interesting, and they were a day apart, is I was teaching this time management course with 400 people in the room probably. And I said, raise your hand if you literally follow your calendar to the tune of 95% or better. I am not 100%. I'm 95% or better. And guess who was the one person in the room in 400 people that raised their hand?
Same.
Nikki.
Same.
Nikki. Like, what I learned from that example is, like, if you are willing to lie to yourself, you're not going to follow your calendar, and you're not going to, and that it gets even worse the further away from yourself. Like, but you have to be honest with yourself, right?
I think it's worth investigating. Like, where my mind goes is the why. Like, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do the thing on your calendar? What's the reason? Because I think identifying the reason is really important.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so
it
that
shouldn't
way
have been on your calendar in the first place, or it wasn't a goal that you really wanted to change in the first place, or
like this is not a high priority thing. Did I put it on there for somebody else? You know, because of whatever reason. But I think paying attention to the whys is huge, because that kind of starts to like sniff out some of the things that you don't need to be on there, right? Like.
And that's really where it comes back to something that you and I were talking about. Like when you guys originally invited us, you said I would simplify, right? So you're simplifying your family, which you covered a little bit. You know, simplify at work, simplify with your money. Which, by the way, let's talk about that with family.
Sure.
Money is a real issue with families. Most of the time, one person's paying the bills. Most of the time, one person is controlling the money, which means somebody else is feeling controlled. Like if you don't budget one time a month, sit down together, look at the numbers, talk about the numbers. For the love of God, if one of you guys dies, the other person needs to know where the freaking keys to the safe are, right? Yeah. Like, and where the money is. Yeah. So, but they avoid it because they've never done it before, or somebody's controlling. And so that's a super big piece about getting on the same page. And to me, it's really simple. It is just look at it once a month. Just like with investing, once a month, I send money to my financial planners. Yeah, I ask the professionals to tell me where to put my money. And once a month, it just goes. You know, if you work at a company that has a 401k, like you put it on autopilot. Money's gone from your check before it gets to your bank account. It's super simple, right? So the thought of autopiloting as many things you possibly can, like if you're in a relationship business, you should have recurring meetings, like recurring events on your calendar. If you want to have lunch with me once a month, like don't schedule it for next month, like schedule it forever for the rest of our lives. Like every second Thursday of the month, forever, right? And the more things you can do on autopilot within your calendar, then you really are making a choice for yourself, and that they're making a choice as well of, forever's a long time, but if you're really that important to my business as well, why wouldn't I agree to that forever, right? If I really believe money is really important, why wouldn't I go ahead and have a budget done every month, same day, forever? If I really think that being in shape is important, why wouldn't I work out the same days every week forever? And so, like, I don't pay for a gym membership once a month. Like, I literally buy out 3 to 6 months of personal training sessions at a time. Money's freaking gone. I'm going to show up. They already took my money. I'm going to for sure be there, right? Absolutely. So that to me is like decide for long-term things or don't do it at all. And the thing that this really developed into is what Brynn and I, when we really broke down life, business, family, financial, it was this idea of keystone habits. And the keystone habits are, we learned it from a guy named John Israel.
Mr. Thank You.
Mr. Thank You. It's a great book, by the way, if you haven't read it yet. Were you on that call?
No.
Definitely worth talking to, for real. John Israel, Mr. Thank You. Shout out to you, John. Anyways, what he talks about is these keystone habits, which are habits that happen on autopilot week in and week out, no matter what, that in and of themselves seem to be pretty insignificant. Right. But if done consistently over time, have these like far-reaching ripples. Like imagine a clear lake and you throw a big rock in it and those ripples just go on forever, right? So the analogy he used was working out, right? Like working out is not necessarily like for healthy people. Okay. In and of itself, by itself, there's lots of fat people that work out and like just do curls, right? And they don't lose weight and they wonder why, right? Right. But it's an seemingly insignificant thing. But if you actually go to the gym 3 times a week, 4 times a week, week in and week out, then, the days at least that you worked out, maybe at lunchtime, if you worked out in the morning, you don't want to blow what you did. You burned 400 calories in the morning. I'm going to eat a better choice for lunch, right? Correct. You're thirsty is what he talks about. Like, so instead of drinking Coca-Cola, you start drinking waters. Correct. You have to work out in the morning, so you're going to not drink the last drink at 11 o'clock at night. You'll have the last drink at around 9 o'clock so you can get to sleep because you have to work up. Right. Exactly. So that one choice, that keystone habit, has these far-reaching benefits, which as a group, guess what happens? Now you start to lose a little weight, right? Exactly. And so when you think about...
And you're not focused on drinking this much water, going to bed at this time, counting calories,
trying to have these 30 things I got to keep track of. Right. This is the one thing. And so if you can develop the keystone habit for each of the wheel of life areas that you're trying to improve in, right? Like, spirituality. You want to, like, you're an atheist, you are curious, you want to learn more, like, I don't know, go to church once a week, or have a conversation with a religious person, once a month, a Jewish guy, or read a book, read the Torah, read the Bible, read something every day. And you do that over time, you're going to start to develop a little bit of spirituality or your own ideas about it, right?
Absolutely.
At work, it's much easier. Like, if you're trying to build your business, have more contacts, have more conversations, and have more appointments, period,
Right.
end of story. Like, you can be an idiot selling stupid stuff, and you have more contacts, more conversations, and more meetings than the next person. You're going to sell more of that stupid stuff than somebody else, right?
Sure.
So how you do that is an hour recurring daily in your calendar. That's the same Keystone habit. Like, making 10 calls a day by itself is not a lot, but me making 10 calls a day every day for probably how many years? Like,
yeah, a lot.
I'm trying to remember when
Almost 20.
It's over 10,
Right.
over 20 years. Shit, I'm 42. So I got an insurance when I was 22. So for 22 years, at least 10 calls a day.
Yeah.
Like, with a variance of probably 5% of the days of my life that I'm at work that I don't actually make the calls, 10 calls a day for 20 years makes for a good income over a
I
lifetime.
thought you were an overnight sensation.
Oh yeah. That's really the case.
Well, and it's the truth. It's the goal.
Overnight sensation. That's you.
yeah. That is but the goal was attained through numerous small victories.
Yep.
And you got to look at it that way. You know what I mean? It's
Pounding the stone.
Yeah, just keep on pounding the stone. I was super encouraged, whenever I read the book, and Pound the Stone, Josh Metcalf. Great. I mean, dude, all this stuff is so easy to read.
It's good.
You think you can get him, like, on a phone for us?
I
Meet this guy.
I do. And, it's so easy to read. All his books are Chop Wood, Carry Water.
I mean, we're friends on Instagram.
So y'all are pretty much best friends.
I mean, that's what that means, right?
What's his name?
Josh Metcalf.
Yes.
Shout out Josh Metcalf.
Dude, so it's the story is great. Just keep on going, man. I know the guy slammed the door in your face, but just keep on going. And
Process is the win.
Yeah, it really is.
And at the end of the day, a combination of numerous victories is going to get you, to the goal. In this guy's, case, get you to the big game. You know what I mean? And it's super encouraging knowing that as as people, like as a business owner, like we do have our hiccups here and there. And
Absolutely.
we're not perfect. But if we can just put a lot of small victories together, we're going to hit our goal. People are going to tell us no. We don't win 100% of the deals. Nobody does. Yeah. But a bunch of them put together will get you to your goal.
Yeah. And that's something you guys talked about in one of your speeches, was that a lot of people everybody has dreams, everybody has goals, but the tough part is doing mapping out the small things that get you to your big goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I'm reading Atomic Habits right now, and in that book he talks. I can't think about who the author is.
It's on my desk.
Cleary, anyway.
This is so funny. I got to tell you, I got to interrupt you real quick. I ran into Brynn at the damn convenience store the other day, and our conversation was, she's like, "Have you read Atomic Habits yet?" I was like, it's like a random Friday night. I'm walking out, she's walking in. She's like, "Have you read Atomic Habits yet?" I'm like, "No." So me being me, I jump on Amazon real quick, order it. It's probably sitting in my dining room right now, waiting to be read. But I thought
really
it was
good.
hilarious.
I really like it. But he talks about, it's not about the big goal. It's really about getting the process dialed in to hit the goal. Because the goal is far away, right? Sometimes really far away.
Right.
But if you have a dialed in process, then you're feeling those little wins along the way, because all you're focused on is, did I do the process? Did I get the process down today? Which is a really
And that
good
goes back to just defining what the win is for the day versus defining the win as I hit my annual goal.
Yes.
That's where a lot of people get screwed up, is they're like, I want to make X this year, or I want to, lose X number of pounds this year, or whatever. And then, somewhere about March, you've forgotten completely what it was that you wanted.
Right.
Or you've already stopped following the process and you don't know why.
Sure.
Or you've lost heart because you've only lost 3 pounds.
Sure.
and you're supposed to lose 20 for the year, and it's like 3 doesn't seem like a lot, but that's like a quarter of the way to 10 pounds if that's your yearly goal, right?
And not to mention what you're doing that got the 3 pounds off, which probably includes a lot of water, probably moving your body,
Right.
setting
All
a good
good
example,
things.
all good things, setting a good example for your kids, like
Defining what the win really is.
Yeah.
I think stopping and being grateful too on
Oh,
where
dude.
you are right
Gratitude.
now, man, that just kind of slows time down, and you're just kind of like, am I really sitting here in my podcast room 10 years later with some of my
Right.
favorite people that
Yeah.
would have if you'd have told me I was sitting in a podcast with
So
you
cool,
guys
yeah.
10 years ago, I'd have called you a liar, but it's
That's
just
funny.
it's amazing,
Yeah.
Gratitude.
we're at
Well,
now.
So huge.
I'll tell you, I've got a really good question because you guys know the law of 10,000 hours is mastery, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys know how long it takes to get 10,000 hours?
However many minutes are in 10,000 hours.
It takes exactly 10,000 hours.
Right.
And that's what people try to skip through with the get rich quick and or whatever. It's like, well, if I can't get it done in a click of a button, then for sure it's not worth chasing because it's just too long away. And my son's a baseball pitcher. Her son's in baseball as well, but my son's a baseball
Did you
pitcher.
know that he is he was a catcher all through high school and won the national championship?
State.
World
buddy.
championships.
That's awesome.
That's why you can't bend his
You
knees
played the World
anymore.
Series? That's what I
He
heard.
played in the World Series.
Yes. So
Useless information.
that's exactly right. But the reason I bring that one up is my son. So I'm not that great of an athlete. Let's just call it what it is. I'm not a great athlete. My kids are better for sure in all things than me. My son, when COVID started, decided he wanted to try to be a pitcher, right? And said, "Cool. So what does that look like?" And this is literally last March 2020. And he says, "Well, will you get me a professional pitching coach?" And he's never pitched ever. I said, "Well, if you pick up a ball of, a bucket of balls and pitch a bucket every single day for 100 days, I'll give you $100 and I'll get you a pitching coach." And he got through like 30 days and he stopped. And I was like, "Well, you forgot. What do you want to do?" He said, "Well, I'll just pitch tomorrow." I said, "Cool. You start off at number 1 again tomorrow." And so he did it for 100 days. He actually got through. My daughter did a similar thing with basketball, but got through 100 days, gave him $100. I actually found like a 7-year in the pros pitcher up in New Braunfels, and I got a couple pitching things with him, right? Well, the reason I bring this up is that I think the loneliest place in the world is not the pitcher on the mound. It's the parent watching the pitcher on the mound.
I mean, you just want to run out there so bad.
You can't rescue him.
You can't rescue him.
It's the hardest place to be. And
Any pitcher that's going through a funk on the mound,
Dude,
I
it's
mean,
nuts.
I just want to go out there and
yeah.
you just
And
want to save them.
And so, what I find myself doing every time I drive up to a game is, what's your goal for the day? And it's like, I want to hear him say, get a hit or get a out or get a strikeout,
That's
right?
so funny. I asked my kids the
Because
same
I want
thing.
him to have a goal, but I don't need to be like, I want to get a home run and I
Right.
want to like that'll come if you get enough singles. So you'll get a home run, right?
Right.
But he had so his first game was pretty good. 3 months ago, 2 months ago, he got his first debut pitcher and came out and it was like a train wreck. I was watching it in slow motion. I think he walked every single person. He's young enough. He was 10 years old at the time that he walked, 5-run rule for the inning.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of walks to walk
That's a
5
lot
people.
of walks.
It's a lot of walks, right? So he comes out. He's got a little bit of tears in his eyes. Mason, if you're listening to this, son, one day, I'm telling this out of love, because I'm really proud of you. So he walks and he comes to the sideline, and he's coming out with tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Dad, I think I'm having a bad day." I said, "Yes, son, you're definitely having a bad day." And he said, "Do you think coach will let me pitch the next inning?" And I said, "No, Mason, I don't think that's in the cards for this one." And he's kind of dejected a little bit. And I said, "So what are you going to do?" He said, "Well, I guess we'll practice tomorrow."
Yeah.
And
Yes,
I was like,
great
"Oh,
answer.
what a good answer.
Right.
Thank God." And so it really culminated in, 2 weeks later or whatever, he was allowed to close out the game. And dude was on a sled, man. It was just strike, game over, came from behind victory, just closed it out. And what I had to hold myself back on, because I was given this advice from a friend of mine, and I'm so glad I got it. It was actually Tad Chapman giving this advice.
Great
He said,
dude.
make sure that you are proud of the work you put in, not proud of the results.
Right.
And so I was
This is
happy.
huge.
I was so happy that he got the result he wanted, But what I was really proud of is all the work he put in since the last game. Sure. And for, when you go with these, when you think about the long-term goals, right? Like every kid that played football wants to be, the starting quarterback for senior year or in college, right? And every ball player wants to go to the college or the high school World Series or the World Series one day. Sure. But it's like, what are you willing to do between on the daily basis, that daily grind?
Which
That's
is the Win in the Dark book.
Which is the win. It's another one. Win in the Dark. It's like, what are you doing in between that really matters and adds up and adds up and adds up? So
champions are made in the off season.
Absolutely.
Oh, dude, you hear all those Kobe Bryant.
Oh, dude. Best story ever.
Yeah, stories and whatnot. I mean, just turning on the gym lights, the only one in there.
Yep.
Do
you hear about after he won his last title? Like what happened that night? So it was literally. So imagine they've all got the goggles on, popping champagne in the locker room, right? And his personal trainer comes and knocks on the door. And this happened with Michael Jordan as well. Personal trainer knocks on the door. Starting her up, Kobe. What time you want to work out in the morning? And his answer was, same time as always, 4 a.m.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking take a night off.
A day off.
You just won the NBA finals.
You're right.
You're probably going to have a few drinks tonight. His answer was same time as always because he's already playing for the next ring.
Right.
Which is super a different level.
Yeah.
I think, kind of getting back on the mentality thing of it, I've been working out quite a bit lately, and I hate working out. It's not something. It's
not fun.
It isn't fun. You've been doing Camp Gladiator for an hour. I literally look at my clock for all 59 minutes.
Time.
Yeah, I'm just at the end of it though.
Yeah.
Pure misery.
Yep.
In my opinion, for at the end of it, it's not that bad. If you just muddle through it, and whether it's your calendar, whether it's your finances, whether it's just mow through the 1 hour conversation with your wife to get your life back on track, and it's not that bad because the reward is much greater. Losing 10 pounds.
When you look back, it's
people who struggle with drinking or whatever it is. You just one day at a time, man. You just not.
They literally count days.
You just count days. It's not about the big goal.
1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
What do you tell people who have 16 goals?
Narrow them down.
You're not going to do
16. They're not 16 equal goals.
Right.
They're just not. So, what I've come to try to do myself, and I'm guilty of having a lot of goals too, right? Although I've got a bigger team than most, so I can delegate a lot of those things that need to be done to get those multiple goals. The reality is what are the top 3 to 5 priorities for the year? That's the word I use now. It's not a goal anymore for me. It's what are the top 3 to 5 priorities for the year? And every year I reevaluate, and I'm going to commit to it the whole time, put a couple things in place to do it. But those are going to be the basic building blocks for my personal calendar. If I say this is my top 1, 2, or 3 priority, and I get to the end of the week, and I look back at my calendar, if there was no movement, zero movement towards what I claim is my number 1 priority of the year, fail. Right. So you've got to be able to look at your calendar and say, I had movement. Sometimes it's backwards, by the way, but movement's movement. You can adjust and pivot and proceed. What was Matthew McConaughey say? Pivot, proceed, or persist. And it's so true. It's but if that's what you say is the most important thing for you, then why wouldn't you take action on a daily or weekly basis at the minimum? But 10 or 20, you're going to fail more often than you hit it, which is okay, but it's better just to pick the ones that are the most important, because what you don't want to do is hit 7 of the 10, but the 3 that were most important fall the wayside. Just think about spouses since we talk about spouses. For sure we're supposed to at least say God, family, then work, right? But a lot of our goals are work and self-related. And then there's a little bit of the other 2 most important ones. So my goal this year is to be a better husband by doing my coffee every morning and doing a date night every week, right? Top 3 priorities. And the one that you don't want to screw up is that one. If at the end of the year you get a divorce and lose half of all the business earnings you had for the year.
Right.
Right.
Dude,
it doesn't make sense.
One of the funniest things you've ever said I thought was great was when your wife had told you you're not near as cute with half your assets.
First of all, that's not a joke. That's what she said. She is a bitter woman when she wants to argue. She wins
I
those
thought that
arguments.
was great. I think it was hilarious. One thing though that you talk about with the goals, your actions will tell you what your priorities are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We talked about that. The actions are a reflection of your priorities.
Yeah.
Your
Exactly.
calendar's a reflection of your priorities.
If 10 calls a day is what your priority is, then you better be on your phone.
Right.
Your actions reflect what your priorities are. You know, if you're a get out of the office at 3:00 because Kennedy's has got 225 Crown on Thursdays, that's
They
what
do?
your priority. I don't know. Used to. I don't know if
well,
that's
shoot,
what.
it's 4:30 right now, girl.
Wrap it up.
But that's what your priorities are. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
that's
you
true.
can't expect to hit those goals,
Yeah.
whether it's 1 or 21.
Yeah.
You can't expect to hit those goals if your priorities don't reflect
so
what
true.
you're trying to accomplish.
And it's crazy too, because you know who you think you should hang out with and who you change to hang out with over time is interesting. Like there's a couple of we're both in the real estate industry, right?
Right.
And there's for sure a few local realtors that are seen at every event. So you assume that they're the big dog realtors, and the same group of realtors at the same bar every single freaking day, right? And it's like, that's probably not the direction I want to go, right?
Not really what
The ones that like it's funny. People always ask me like, how early is it too early to call somebody? I start calling as soon as I drop my kids off at school. Like
Right.
that's when I start calling. And it's like, well, isn't like 7:45 too early? And it's like, no, because the other people that have kids that are dropping off their kids at school that are going to work are going to be freaking available. And if I call at 9:00, they're already at an appointment because that's the busy one that I want to work with.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's like we have a million excuses why not to do something.
Right.
Try to remove excuses and just act and see what happens.
Get out of your own way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
get out of
yeah,
your
right.
head. You
Yeah.
know, we got a
Yep.
saying around here, you know, being in insurance is stay out of your insured's wallet. You know what I mean? You have no idea what these people have. And you know, we always talk about the fears, concerns, and expectations regarding insurance. It's like, well, you know, this person had a terrible claims experience with, you know, a company. It's like, well, don't give them somebody that we've had a bad experience with also because it's the cheapest. You know, get out of your own way. You know, stay out of your insurance
true.
wallet.
I think
So
you're
true.
right.
It's funny.
And that applies to life too, right? It's
Yeah.
like you have no idea what life wants to give you. You
I
know what I
mean-
mean? And if you just, the universe is going to get out of your way if you just take the small actionable steps to get to where you're going.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's just a beautiful thing.
One thing too that I think is important to say is, you know, the more I call them safety nets, like your reoccurring appointments, you know, the budget meeting, the date night, the
Marketing calendar.
marketing calendar. These are all safety nets so that when shit does hit the fan, because inevitably something will happen that might knock you off your game for a little bit, you don't fall quite so hard.
Right.
Like there's safety nets around you
So true.
to protect all your hard work. So I think that's another little motivation to.
And you also, like when you're not thinking straight because you got knocked on your butt.
Yeah, so
Like
good point.
you don't
yeah.
want to wake up in the morning and think about what I should be doing today because
Right.
Monday when you're frazzled that you had a death in the family or a
Right.
sick kid or, I mean, the billion things that have happened in the last 12 months, right? And, you know, like, you know, Bryn's done a remarkably good job. She had a couple personal, you know,
Man.
woof, like good ones. Zingers. We'll call them zingers.
Zingers.
We'll call them zingers.
Over and over.
Like 3 in a row, 3 months in a row, basically, right?
Yes.
It's like, and but I got to tell you that she showed up with a freaking smile on her face, and she did her job, and she did it well because the calendar said do this, and she freaking did it, and she did this, and she executed, and she did this, and she didn't have the excuse that so many people have. Like there is a difference between having the freaking sniffles
Yeah.
and being in a COVID ICU ward.
Yes.
Right.
Like,
Sure.
show up, put your game face on, do what your calendar says. You know, we had that big snow apocalypse here in San
Yeah.
Antonio.
Snowmageddon.
The Snowmageddon.
God.
It was funny to me. Like, I was actually I was irritated.
Shocking.
I was
We couldn't
irritated.
tell.
So
couldn't
I
tell.
wake up in the morning, and mind you, I lived in the north for a couple of years of my childhood. So I lived in South Dakota. Like our little freaking 4 to 5 inches of snow should not have shut down a 2 million person city, right? And I remember waking up in the morning and it said go to work, and I played with my kids, and they had a snow day, so we played for about 30, 45 minutes during the coffee time, made snowmen, and then I got up to go to work, and I jumped in my truck, and I'm driving the road, and 1604
You're
is literally
the only person on the road.
1604 it was blocked off. They literally had blocked it off. I don't know if I can get. I hope there's a statute of limitations because my truck does not slow down for snow on the highway. So I just went around the little barrier, and I had the fastest commute I've ever had from my house to this office 5 days in a row.
That's
Because
hilarious.
it said go to the office. I went to the office. I worked from the office. I went home. It just is what
Right.
it is. But just removing the excuses and following the plan, I think that simplicity, that I think really, truly time management in and of itself is the key to simplicity.
Removing the excuses,
Yeah.
following the plan.
If it's important enough
to
thank you. If it's important enough to put on your calendar, why the hell wouldn't you do it?
And I think I was just watching a little bit of video that you did. You used to wake up in
You
the
do
morning.
a great job of research, by
You
the way.
really
like
do. I'm so
really,
impressed.
like
We're
really
trying.
impressed,
I
right?
know.
We're trying to kick this thing off on the right
job.
foot. So you used to wake up in the morning and think of everything, every goal that you had and all the crap that you had to do. And it would just drive you crazy every morning.
Yes.
And so that's how I know that you bought in to
Yes.
changing, right?
100%.
And so that's just a whole nother way to simplify your life. Okay, I wake
You're not
up.
awake at night thinking about work anymore when you're in the middle of the night? Yeah, good.
No.
Good.
No, it's all on the whiteboards.
Yeah, and just give it to the whiteboard.
Just give it to the whiteboards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
There's so much truth
and
to
you
that.
decided one day, you just said, the thing, verbatim, the thing that's driving you nuts every day, it's not going to go away
Not going to go away.
on its own.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly
And I
right.
just think that's
Well, I think that's a big issue in America right now. And by the way, I love America, and America is the best place in the world. So this is not a complaint; it's just an observation. Is that there's two groups of people, and unfortunately, one group is bigger than the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's people that take ownership and people that are victims. In stop, right? Like if you can take ownership of where you are in your life, where you're at, that honesty of, yes, I'm an alcoholic, or the honesty of, yes, I'm underperforming, or the honesty of, yes, I'm an asshole to my husband or my wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can own that, then you can change it, right? But what everyone else does, like not the majority of Americans do, is they're looking for their next handout, not hand up. They're a victim of what happened to them 5 years ago, 50 years ago, or 500 years ago.
The victim.
And it doesn't diminish what has really happened in history. That is
Right.
not what I'm saying. But in all classes, in all ethnicities, in all religions, there is somebody that freaking made it at the top.
Right.
Right? Like, look at our last couple of presidents. Look at our last couple of vice presidents. Look at the last couple of leaders of NATO. Look at the last couple leaders of the armed services. Right? Like, those people of all ethnicities, all races, all religions chose to win despite what happened in the past. Despite. And it's so admirable to me to see people rise to the top in anything that they do. And yes, there are people that will get in your way, and there are people that are jerks, and there are people that will hold you back. There are people that literally, like, when we get shown in the Business Journal as being one of the top performing teams for over a decade now, right? I get thank yous or congratulations from people occasionally. Like I run across them at a coffee shop or something. And literally, I can see in their eyes that they're wanting me to fail. They're hoping that I don't make it next year, right? And it's like, man, like it's not a zero-sum game, meaning it doesn't require winners and losers. We can all celebrate all of our successes and help each other succeed in a bigger way.
Yeah. I have to say that the victim mentality is something that we've experienced in our personal family, and with my daughter, and she really was struggling with, like, there's nothing to be grateful for. And she actually told me that one time when I asked her, I said, have you ever thought about what you are grateful for that you do have? And she literally laughed in my face. And I was like, wow, this is an issue. So I put her
Especially
on.
as grateful as you are. Like it doesn't parallel.
It doesn't parallel. So I started having her make a gratitude list every week. She had to turn in a gratitude list. And they started really small.
Right.
And what I am so impressed by and think it is a huge opportunity for anybody that is struggling or feeling like super down on themselves. The one change I had her make was she was trying to go back. So on Sunday, she was trying to go back and think about all the things that she had to be grateful for that week. So what I encouraged her to do was keep the list going throughout the week, so that as soon as you see something that makes you feel good, that you're grateful for, you can write it on the list. And last Sunday, she turned in a 3-page list.
Is that right?
3
warms my heart.
pages. And
she's been through a lot.
She's been through a lot. She has been through a lot, and she arguably, there's definitely some things that for sure that led her to make her feel like this victim mode. And I said, I am so like, this is a beautiful list. I'm like, gosh, like it's so,
Right.
And she goes, oh my gosh, I just could, I could have kept writing. I mean, there's so much, and it's all around me.
So awesome.
So it's awesome. And I've kept them all. I mean, we have a stack, it's
Right.
been 4 months that she's been doing this.
Give it
So
back to her, like,
And she's old enough
find
to
it.
be at the age too where she'd just blow this off.
blow it off. And she would try, it wasn't, in the beginning, it was me hard, where's your gratitude list? Where's your gratitude list? Like we gotta, and she struggled with it. And like when I say there was a few things, I'm talking a few things. And,
Right.
and probably the things that you would think of first, like I'm happy to have a house. I'm happy to have like shoes and, stuff like that, which is fine. That's a great starting point. But if you are struggling with that, or you're feeling like, man, I'm a victim, or I just nothing good happens, you have to start by identifying the gratitude and the
So
things
true.
that you have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
It's the facts, man. We send out thank you cards to all our insureds. They're strategically handed out to everybody in the morning just to get the day going. Every Monday morning, thank you cards are handed out for everybody to sign. And, everybody, you can beat yourself down because generally speaking, I think, at least for me personally, I'm my own worst critic. I would imagine people like, you guys are too, because we're just so driven towards something that, nobody's going to be harder on myself than me.
Right.
You can beat yourself down pretty good. And, but like anything else, you got to build yourself back up and just continue to keep on trucking.
Yep.
And,
100%.
that's just the reality. Use your tools, use technology, use your spear, your financial advisor, let those guys handle what they want to do or how they're going to, simplify your life. Get with your finances. I dabbled in stocks and I realized this is not for me. You know what I mean? It just takes up too much time. You know what I mean? I'm not. This is not what I. This is not what I am good at.
Pick 10 stocks, put the rest in S&P.
Exactly. Go here. Tom, this is what I pay you for. You do this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, whether I don't know. We've all have had conversations before about this. Even seeing like a family coach or a family, therapist, doctor, whatever you want to call her, you know what I mean? It's kind of, 100, well, even up to like, 10, 15 years ago, in my opinion, these things were like frowned upon. You know what I mean? It's like, marriage counselor, got it, they must be doing bad.
Must be doing really bad, yeah.
Eric's about to be on the market. You know what I mean? But it literally turned my wife and our relationship around because it was 1 hour that cost me a $20 copay, which is a hell of a lot less than half my assets. And
mental note.
That
Mental note. Sounds like a really good investment.
Yeah, exactly. But it gave us 1 hour to literally just talk.
Just talk,
The kids are gone. It's quiet. We kind of got a little bit of a mediator. You know what I mean? It's like
don't underestimate the power of a third party there to kind of like, and I always
and
laugh
you say
too.
it best, Josh. Be careful who your coaches are.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
This is a licensed person who, this is not your uncle who's been divorced 3 times.
No joke.
You know what I mean?
Careful who you're-
Yeah, and
careful.
I see that a lot with like friend groups. You go to the bar with a couple girlfriends or a couple boyfriends, and like if they were the ones that were already divorced, like they're gonna egg you on and say, "Yeah, you
Correct.
deserve more. Screw that guy. Like, get back on the street. You'll be fine."
Yeah.
Like, go find the person who's got
No.
the best marriage that you can possibly find, that's been married for 30 freaking years, and it's going to give you some real life advice. But I'll tell you that I was down that YouTube. I've told this story probably 3 times now, right? But I was going down the YouTube vortex a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was one of those late nights.
in
It
the
happens to
bed.
all of
Yeah.
us. Okay, I was down this vortex.
most often to be on TikTok, but yes.
Right. So I was down this vortex, and I wake up and it's done like days, like 3 hours later, and I was watching a John Maxwell YouTube video, and it was
this is
super
good.
interesting to me because you could tell he was like finishing up a speech, like a seminar, and some younger guy, 25, 30-year-old guy, comes running up to him, is talking to him, and he's like, "John, Mr. Maxwell, man, like I want to do what you do when I grow up, right?" And John Maxwell's answer was like priceless. He said, son, everyone wants to do what I do, but are you willing to do what I did?
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone sees me on the stage,
I love that.
but there's a whole lot between where you are and where I am,
Right.
and it's totally doable. But are you willing to do what I did?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the moral is, yes, it's an exercise in gratitude. Yes, it's an exercise in grit. Yes, it's an exercise in understanding what the top priorities for the day and the week are. It's about moving the needle on what matters most. It's making sure before you agree to a goal and agree to a destination and agree towards a plan and agree towards the execution that you really want to freaking do it. Like it's worth it to you. And before you say yes, you'd make sure that you're not saying no to somebody that's more important to you. And then if it hits your freaking calendar, be honest with yourself and just freaking do it. Like just literally follow your calendar to a T.
Right.
And I really think that if you spend more time on the front side, like Brynn said, like just spend more time. If you're going to spend minutes and hours and a month, trying to decide where you want to go and what you want to do with your husband or wife, with your business or business partner, with your money, like take more time really evaluating like what do I really want to do, what I really enjoy, what I really think the promised man looks like, and is it worth the ride, and then put it in your calendar and execute. It's a lot less time consuming than working for 15 years, 25 years, only to find out that I don't really like this, what I do, or where I'm at.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is conquering the brain, and so that's a big part of simplifying things, right? Everything's so emotional. How can we develop a plan that's logical to cut things down and make things less emotional when it gets to that point? I wanted to talk to you guys about, we're talking about grit, we're talking about doing hard stuff for long periods of time. I wanted to talk to you about positivity, and embracing positivity in your difficult tasks, right? Making difficult tasks fun, or somehow tricking your brain into, hey, I like this stuff, have you guys, I know that just by being around you guys, that you guys are positive people and you approach your problems, with a positive mindset. Can you speak to that at all about, making it fun and making the hard things fun?
I got two quick answers. I love this, and I'm going to hand it over to you. My first one is my buddy Hunter said something about it 6 months ago that I will never forget the day I die. You change your words from I have to I get to. Like I don't have to pick up my kids from school today. I get to pick up my kids from school today.
Sure.
I don't have to make dinner for my kids. I get to make dinner for my kids. I don't have to go work out. I get to go work out, right?
My body allows me to.
Yeah, and it's really like that's a starting point, just like daily affirmations, to start convincing your mind to appreciate the moment, right? It's a gratitude piece. But the other thing that I worry less about, it's not about the positivity for me. It's the difference between happiness and joy, right? In that happiness is temporal, and usually it's fleeting. It's a moment. It's my wife made me happy or my wife pissed me off, right?
Sure.
As opposed to joy comes from within. It's like you get to choose it. You like literally are joyous. Like it's a internal thing that cannot be affected by the outside world, because somebody's going to cut me off on the way out of here. Somebody's going to quit me. Somebody's going to decide to do their loan with a different company.
Right.
Somebody's going to do something that can really piss me off,
Sure.
and I'll still be joyous.
Yeah.
And it allows those moments to be shorter moments, because I'm affected. Everyone's affected by a bad moment, a bad day. But that decreasing the time in the bad moments and elongating the times of joy is something that is a learned skill, and it's very, very, very transferable. Very transferable.
I had
That's my best answer.
A buddy of mine told me, he said, you're going to be doing this so long. When it comes to the job, you're going to probably do it after work. You're going to do it in the middle of the night. You're going to do it in the morning. You're going to do it all day. You got to make it fun.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do.
That.
Just go make it fun.
Yeah, totally.
Did you have a thought?
Mine just all goes back to gratitude. Anytime things get hard, my first thing, if something shitty happens, the very first thing I do is go make a gratitude list about what can be learned from the opportunity to learn from this horrible situation.
Right.
That's a great tactic.
And that's it. That's just, what is there to gain? There's a reason for it. So, where's the gratitude lie? No matter what it is, thank God I have the money to pay for the problem, or thank goodness we have the, thank goodness I have a husband to fight with, right? Like I'd be really sad.
So
I'd be
interesting.
really sad if I didn't have somebody to fight with, you know,
Right.
and I'd be really sad the day that the kids are gone and I don't have baseball bats to trip over and Legos to step on in the middle of the night.
Well said.
Like that'll be sad.
Well, you get the you got two choices. You can curl up in a corner and cry for the next 10 hours, or you can curl up in a corner and cry for the next 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and then get on with your life.
And make your gratitude
And that's
list.
just the the
Yeah.
difference of just being simply, a joyous situation. Like
Yeah.
this is just a momentary
It's a road
hiccup.
bump.
Yeah.
Road bump
We'll
versus
get past
roadblock.
this. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I know you guys are got 1,000 things to do today. In our theme, if I were you, what is some regarding simplifying life? What are a couple of little tidbits people can take with them? How to simplify, whether it's family related,
Yep.
financially related, life related. Just what can we bring home?
I know you
You
guys
first.
are all about getting crystal clear on your goals.
Yep.
I know that about you.
Yep.
Josh is so
final
much
answer?
better about clarity than I am. If I were you, I would do a wheel of life.
That's
Yeah.
actually a great answer.
It is.
Absolutely.
I love that you're tying this in. Well done, sir.
Yeah,
if I were
so
you,
good. I like it.
to really simplify, if I were you, I think everyone needs a coach and mentor. I think that it's a lot easier to follow advice and be accountable to somebody than to try and figure it out on your own. And I find that like too much freedom for anyone is not good. And so, going back to what you said earlier, where all of us as kids had some rules and regulations and bedtime, and then you get turned off in the world, whether it's in college or in the work world, and there's none of that. And people embrace that freedom, but doesn't mean that it's good for you.
Right.
Right. And so, whether if you're self-employed, you're probably a bad boss. Let's start there. If you're self-employed, you are your own boss, which means you're a bad boss most of the time. So you have to be a boss of yourself with a calendar. But if you're employed, sometimes it's just like, tell me what to do, boss. Right, wrong, indifferent. It's the military. Choose the military mindset of just do it anyways. Right? Like, you told me to do it. I trust that you have my best interest in mind. Just do it anyways.
Discipline.
And that we're so quick to figure it out, chase the new shiny stone or the new pretty butterfly, and try and do something new. And there's a few Elon Musk in the world, like a total of one, right? And then there's people that try to be him, and they're not going to be him, right?
Sure.
And that's not going to talk people off. If you had a dream, go chase it. But man, if you got we all need more rules, and I think that the more rules, whether it's organization on a Sunday, times to be where show up to do what, by with whom, and be accountable to somebody, somewhere, some coach, some mentor that has your best interest in mind. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
It's just being it's not being your own boss. It's
Accountability partner.
accountability
Yeah.
partner
Yeah.
It's huge.
that cares
Yeah,
That
and
cares.
get somebody to help you overcome your mental, hurdles.
and calls you out in your BS, your
Exactly.
mental BS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be more powerful. The mind is more powerful than any drug you can possibly take out there, if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can totally overcome any mental hurdle that if you just allow yourself.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Believe in yourself.
Usually the simplest answer is the best answer.
Yeah.
Like, I've lost a lot of money, and we had a whole episode on how much money I've lost in
That was a
like
fun episode.
being creative with investments.
Have to go back and
And
check
I've made
that
a
out.
whole-
Two episodes.
Yeah. Was it 2 episodes?
I'm just
It
kidding.
might be. It literally might be.
It's a lot of money.
But literally, the most money I've got personally is the consistent monthly
yeah.
drip to my financial planner over 20 years.
Yeah.
That's where the majority of my wealth is. Right.
I was actually caught off guard when I called you about 6 months ago and I told you, hey, man, I want to start investing in houses. You're like, hey, I got 10. I was like, 10? I thought I was talking to a professional. This guy's got 10.
I've 10. I've probably bought and sold another 50 to 80 on top of that.
Wow.
But but it's a couple a year. Like, keep the main thing. You are an insurance guy. Like, do insurance.
Right.
Right. Like,
It's the facts.
I'm a mortgage guy. I'll do mortgages.
Yeah.
Sure.
I should retract my statement. The most money I've made over time is just doing my damn job.
Doing your job.
Like,
There you
like
go.
There you go.
that's
Imagine
probably
that.
the truth. Like, just do your job and save
Good
more of it than you
correction,
spend.
That's a
and then
great
that money
point.
spends off money over time, right?
That's a great point.
But it's the simplicity. It's like write thank you notes. It's kiss your kids in the morning. It's make freaking Sunday breakfast. It's just do the simple things over time. It'll work out.
Those are the things.
Say
that
I love you more often. Say
that
thank
brings
you
you
more
joy.
often. Yep, absolutely.
I
But
mean, I've really enjoyed this. This was I
Me
don't know how I don't think we could have kicked this off.
Appreciate the invite.
better, man. I'm so excited that you guys were able to make it. So
Yeah, thank you for having us. I didn't know we were going to kick it off. That's super exciting.
it is exciting.
we're rooting for you. We'll
we
try and promote you the
appreciate
best we can. But that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for having us, boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Cheers.
Awesome.